Did you hear that last note? Wasn't it unexpected? It was much louder than the other notes, wasn't it? Well, there's a reason for that, because the composer wanted you to be surprised. Franz Josef Haydn wrote Symphony No. 94 in G major as a fun piece with varying levels of dynamics. Now, this may sound normal to our listening ears, but as music transitioned from Baroque to classical, dynamics were just starting to be used as a musical element. So those first listeners were certainly surprised by what they heard. Franz Josef Haydn, also known as Papa Haydn.
Did they call him that because he had lots of children?
No, Dexter, he actually didn't have any children. I think they called him Papa Haydn because he was also known as the father of the symphony.
Cool. So he created the symphony.
Not really, but he was very prolific in contributing to the writing of the symphonic form. He actually wrote 104 of them, and many of them are still played today.
Wow, that's a lot.
It sure is.
So what else can you tell me about Papa Haydn?
Well, he was born in the country of Austria in 1732 to a very large musical family. His father was a private music teacher and taught young Haydn how to play both the harpsichord and the violin. Haydn was also gifted as a singer and sang in the boys' choir at St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. He eventually became the chief soloist of this choir. Singing in a boys' choir was a very honorable and prestigious job in those days, but as Haydn grew older and his voice changed, he would later have to quit the choir.
Gloria, Gloria, oh.
This didn't stop him from loving music. He went on to teach harpsichord and violin just like his father. In fact, one of his most famous students was Ludwig van Beethoven. We will hear more about him in a future video. When Haydn was almost 30, he got a job writing music and conducting the chorus for a famous and wealthy prince named Prince Nicholas Esterházy of Hungary. During his years at the Esterházy Castle, he wrote many of his compositions. Haydn was quite witty and had a great sense of humor. You can hear it in several of his compositions. For example, in Symphony No. 45, which is called the Farewell Symphony, Haydn wrote this composition to send a message to Prince Esterházy that the musicians were tired of playing and wanted to go home to their families. During the last movement, the music slows down and one by one, different sections of the orchestra leave their stands and stop playing until there are only 2 violins left on the stage. The story goes that Prince Esterházy got the message and decided to let the musicians go home that day. There is something very interesting about working at the Esterházy Castle. You see, back then, people did not have phones and computers to stream their favorite music. Instead, musicians and composers would be hired to play at the castle anytime the prince would want to hear music. Here's a picture of what the concert hall looks like today.
Wow, this castle is amazing. Did Haydn live there?
As a matter of fact, Haydn lived in the Esterházy estate for about 30 years, where he composed operas, symphonies, and even string quartets. In 1790, Prince Esterházy died, and although Haydn was allowed to still live in the castle on a pension, he decided it was time to move elsewhere and share his music with the rest of the world.
Cool.
England became a place he frequented. In fact, it was in London where his Surprise Symphony had its debut. Haydn loved it there so much that he even considered becoming an English citizen.
What else can you tell me about Haydn?
Well, there's a lot more, but we are running out of time, Dexter.
But I have so many more questions to ask you, like, did Haydn know any other famous composers? What are some of his other well-known compositions, and when and where did he die?
All right, Dexter, I can't tell you everything. I think it's time for you to do some research yourself.
Okay.
In fact, now that this video is over, it's your turn. What are you still wondering about? Write a list of questions and do some investigating, and I'll see you next time on Music Lessons with Mrs. Morris.